Cloud. All right. Good morning, everyone. This is Jake Ryan with SWBC Mortgage, doing my Keys to the Market podcast. I'm graciously joined by my CEO, Susan Stewart of SWBC Mortgage. Thank you so much for joining us this morning, Susan.
Happy to be here. Fun.
I had to put on a sport coat. Usually I just do these in polos where I'm wearing, but I'm like, if I'm interviewing my own boss, I got to look good today.
What up? Well, thank you. That's nice of you. I would
And,
have been fine anyway.
I try. Well, Susan, I've been dying to have you on for a while. When we were on our President's Club trip in, was it Charleston? We were just there about a couple months ago. I mentioned this to you, and you were gracious enough to join us. And I've been telling everyone in our market, it's like they got to talk to Susan. They got to hear from Susan. I know when we were looking a couple of years ago, for me personally and a lot of our other guys, the conversation with you, it was only 15, 20 minutes just on the phone. It was an eye-opening one. So I'm excited for everyone in the DMV to hear from Susan today.
Okay, I'll give it my best shot. I'm gonna let you down. You set these hard.
Okay, no. I think you're gonna crush it. I know you're gonna crush it.
Okay.
So Susan, I'm gonna start with a little softball here. How did you get in the mortgage business?
You know, so I got in the business. I was 24 years old and a single mom, two little kids, a 2-year-old and a 5-year-old, and I needed a job. And kind of an acquaintance basically said, "Hey, there's this mortgage company hiring. You ought to go talk to them." So I went and got hired to be a processor, which was interesting because I knew nothing about it. I'd had mortgages, but I didn't know anything about it. It turned out to be a terrible job, but it got my foot in the door. And within probably about 6 months, I got a different job. It wasn't a terrible job at a better company with a better boss. And then it was kind of off to the races. I loved it right out of the gate. Once I got to a good company, I loved it.
That's awesome. Okay, so started out as a processor. I imagine there was a couple of jumps along the way to get into CEO. So tell me a little bit more about your journey of what that was like and sitting in different kind of seats along the way.
So I always tell people I'm a 90-day wonder, but there were many 90-day wonders. So back when I got into the business, a lot of people were joining at the same time. So there's a lot of us in the same age group, frankly, in the industry, which is a challenge, which is why we're so happy to have you, Jake. But I wasn't a processor for very long at all. I think I probably processed for maybe a year.
Okay.
Uh, and then I was made underwriter. I was an underwriter. And then pretty soon after, I mean, I didn't underwrite for that long. I think I was always anxious to learn the next thing. So, I was very hard. I always tell people it's like my secret to my success is I was always just a really hard worker. So I was willing to outwork anybody. I wasn't necessarily smarter or better at this or that, but I was definitely going to work harder. So I worked really hard just to understand each role I had and so that I could master it really quickly. Because really, I think I was a little bit ADD. I wanted to go to the next thing. So I underwrote for a while. I didn't really enjoy underwriting. Underwriting is really, they're unsung heroes. It's a
Sure.
really tough job. You don't have that much fun interaction when you're underwriting, which I really enjoy the fun interaction. So
Right.
after I underwrote for probably another year, that was all, maybe a little longer, I was made an operations manager in a branch. Again, it was just because I was always there, always willing to take on the hideous job. I was willing to raise my hand and volunteer. And so I went from operations manager. And then when I moved to San Antonio, I went to work for a home builder as their loan officer. I'd loan officered for a while. I started loan officering when I moved to San Antonio. Worked for a couple of companies. It was a really weird time in Texas. The S&L crisis and oil crisis was going on. So I was an originator for the first time. I was a loan officer, which I thought was the hardest job. I still think that it's a really hard job. And after I originated for a while, I went to work for a home builder, and then he wanted to start a mortgage company. So I started that mortgage company for him. And then from
Awesome.
there, I got recruited by SWBC to come here and run the mortgage company, which really was just incorporated. It wasn't doing anything yet.
Sure.
So I got hired to come over here and create a mortgage company.
And look at you now. So how long have you been at SWBC?
37 years in September.
Wow. You
My whole
mentioned that.
life.
So that's a long time.
So a long
You,
time.
you mentioned underwriting wasn't the most fun. I mean, I always think of the underwriter's job is to look for problems and issues, right? So if you're looking for problems and issues all day, all you're going to see is problems and issues, which is unfortunately, why I think they have such a challenging job. So definitely respect it, but man, I wouldn't want to be digging through looking for problems all day.
It's a super hard job and it's so technical now. And it's much harder today than it was when I was an underwriter, because when I was underwriting, there really was a much smaller number of products that you had to know about. It was really Fannie, Freddie, Ginnie, VA. I mean, Ginnie Mae stuff, Fannie, VA, Fannie, Freddie, FHA, and VA. There wasn't much outside of that. And then eventually there were other products added. But if you look at today, at the depth of knowledge that an underwriter has to have over many, many, many products, I think it's much more difficult than it was when I did it. I'm glad I don't do that now. It's hard. I appreciate the ones that we have working for us because they are really amazing.
Yeah, I will say that coming over here, like Mark Jensen, Becky, Brian, everyone else, like it's been great to work with them, and the way you've got it kind of siloed for departments, different, like Fannie Freddie, you have your non-QM, non-agency, like it allows them to kind of focus on their niches versus having to be a master of everything per se.
Right.
So you kind of just hit on this. So I was going to say, what's changed today compared to when he started, and what's kind of been timeless? You mentioned the scope of programs, all right, the options that are out there. When you mentioned when you were starting, there was this many options. Now it seems like there's endless with the non-QM. There's always things being added. Do you think we continue down that road, or do you think we eventually get back to a smaller, purview?
I don't think we ever go back to the smaller world, because I think one thing that's happened is over time is that as an industry, we've learned that not every product fits every person, and people are complicated and have different requirements. And so you need more products for them. The biggest change I would say is probably technology is significantly different.
Sure.
It's better. I do think that everybody in the industry, that the job is a little more difficult than it used to be because it's more complex and complicated. So if you're a processor or an underwriter or a closer, you just have a little bit more challenging job than when it was just four or five products you need to really understand how to underwrite and close. Now, as we were talking about, it seems limitless. I think that's actually great, as long as we keep in mind that we're supposed to be the advisor to the customer and make sure we don't get them in a product that's bad for them long term. And we all learned that lesson. Hopefully we never forget that lesson. But I don't see us going back to, 4 or 5 options out there. I think these other products perform really, really well, and they are more suited to the more complex financial situations that people have to. I mean, just think about how people earn an income now. It's no longer they just have one job that what they do. We see all kinds of varieties of income, multiple jobs. That just is that one size fits all. I think that is long gone, and for the best.
Yeah, I mean, look, there's a perfect example, non-warrantable condos. So I got one right now in Arlington, Virginia. They're about to start the roof repair work, right? They've been about for a while. So it just got on the Fannie ineligible list. This is a perfect example. They're going to do this work. It's going to be done in a few months. She can still buy the home today. We use a non-warrantable investor. And then 6 months, whatever it is, assuming rates stay stagnant or come down, she refis to a Fannie Freddie product, right? There's going to be an option out there for it. So the non-warrantable, non-QM option gives you the opportunity to buy today, knowing that this is something more than likely will be solved in a very short amount of time.
I mean, in the past, anything that was outside of just the sort of generic products available through agencies went to a private investor. And that could be that it was a portfolio like a bank or a credit union that still do a great job. But also there were plenty of times when it was like a hard money loan where people were really paying up to get these products. And there wasn't a credit challenge. It wasn't a question whether the borrower was a good borrower. It just didn't fit in that box. So I do believe that today, borrowers are just much better served and much more able to be agile about what they do and when they do it because of the options out there. I mean, down payment assistance, we had that, but nothing like we have today. Today, There's great products out there to help people.
Oh, yeah. I mean, with the non-QM stuff, I used to think of that as like, this is like rebranded subprime. But then you see a lot of it's like more common sense underwriting. Yeah. It's just like, all right, if I was going to lend my own money to someone starting a business, we look at their bank statements for cash flow versus what they're filing on their, tax returns. It all makes sense for the most part. It's not like one day out of bankruptcy or foreclosure, not like stuff like that anymore.
Nothing like that. Right.
So we touched on the many roles you've, sat in over the years.
And now you're CEO. I had a lot of roles.
Yeah, you just kind of, you keep working your way up the ladders, but now you're at the top. Now you're CEO. What do you enjoy most about being CEO?
the people part. The mortgage business is very difficult. And it's difficult because it's a balancing act. You're balancing running a company and the requirements for a company to be successful and to be safe and sound, which is,
Sure.
the unfun part sometimes, that some of the decisions you have to make. But the people side of it is extremely rewarding. I mean, the people that do this for a living, they're hardworking, they're smart. We work with amazingly dedicated people, loyal people. That's just joy in your life, frankly. So you have to balance it. I mean, there are times when, we're dealing with something at corporate that's not that fun, that's just pure business, and you have to make some decisions that are hard. But it's offset. It's more than offset by all the people that you get to work with. And that for me, I think, especially since early in my career, I wanted to change my role so often because I would learn how to do something, be like, okay, I got that, now what? Let's do something else. With this role, that never happens. You never think, okay, I've got it. There's no such thing as you've got it. There's always an opportunity. There's always challenges out there. And I think that keeps you interested.
I like it. So we talked about the good. What keeps you up at night? What's the bad? What do you worry about as CEO?
I worry about the future years, about making decisions today that are good for the future. I mean, we've been a company that's been able to adapt. We've stuck to our principles. We just never veer off of what we believe is right and wrong. But we're going to go through a period of a lot of change. So on the one hand, I'm really excited about it. It's necessary. It's way past the time that we get more efficient in our industry and the process is easier and the platforms are easier to work with. We're way past that time. We just, as an industry, adopt technology a little more slowly sometimes than maybe is ideal.
Sure.
And you have so many moving parts. Fannie and Freddie have their requirements. Ginnie have their requirements, and they have to abide by those. And we somehow have to fit that along with all the other products and manage a company and make sure the company is profitable and make sure, really, first and foremost, I always feel like the customers for me are you guys, are my coworkers, but then the borrower is what we're here for. I mean, we are here to take care of somebody and to do a good job for them. So I think the balancing act of that as we go into more AI and protecting a borrower. I mean, we were talking to a banker friend who was talking about how his customers, and these are older customers with a high net worth, are going on ChatGPT and just putting all their financial information out there and asking questions. And it's like, somebody needs to start educating people that means it's out there forever for anybody that wants to get it. It's a really bad idea. So somehow we have to use AI in all the good ways, and we have to protect our borrowers in all the ways it's a risk to them. And so that is something to me that is something to stay awake at night about a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, look, the technology is not going away, but at the same time, in financial services, you do have so much sensitive information that, you can't just plug your pipeline into Claude or ChatGPT and be like, develop me a marketing plan to reach these people. But it's like, you can't just put non-public information out there. You got to protect the clients. Like you said, they're your clients. You got to look out for them.
I think the number is, if I have this right, was $8 billion last year is how much senior citizens were lost to fraud. $8 billion. So when you think about how sophisticated AI is, how good it is, how fast it's moving, it's really important that everybody stay aware of what they're doing and really research how these different products and services, Claude, Chat, all of them, and protect themselves a little bit. And I think we're just on the edge of that right now. And so that's a little bit unnerving to me that that's so easy. And my family and then my husband's family, we watched all of our, both our mothers get absolutely ripped off. And with AI, it'll be a lot easier as they get older and we're confused about things. As you get older, I think about our borrowers, and I think about borrowers that are, interestingly, the young, really young borrowers, future borrowers, are kind of onto it. They're complaining about it already a little bit. And I think that's a really good sign. It's like, just know what you're doing and what you're doing, what information you're providing and how it's out there permanently. Just know that, understand it. Because I think you hear college kids get it. College kids are starting to be a little worried about it, which is a great sign for the future.
Yeah, it's funny. My grandma had a scam caller. They said, your grandson's in prison. You got to bail him out. And she called me. She says, everything's good. I was like, Grandma, I love you, but like, you would be my last call to bail me out. I'm going deeper pockets way first.
At least she called you. We have a coworker here whose sister had cancer. This is a terrible scam, and it's very common. And they got all her money when she was in chemo. And so it's one of these things where I think we need to be talking about it regularly. And for what we do, when we have so much borrower financial information, so much private information, our borrowers need to understand, don't just plug it out there in the ether of the, AI and think
Yeah.
that's a great idea. Be a little more cautious about protecting yourself. So as we're advancing AI in our process, which I'm thrilled about,
Hmm.
we have to also be careful with it.
I like it. Yeah. Well, you always got to be vigilant. Sorry.
Yeah.
Uh, so you mentioned earlier, you started in this industry, 24 years old, single mom of two, you have a large family now, you've grown. How have you managed family and work, right? That delicate balance. I know it's always a tough one.
I've talked about this a lot of times. And one thing I think is important to put in perspective, at different times of your life, it's more balanced than at other times. So there are times when your family needs you to be there for them, um, much more so than maybe when they're little bitty kids. And they're little bitty kids, they need you, they need to see you, but they're not. It's when you start becoming a teenager, and then they're going into college, and then you're dealing with your parents. So the balancing act changes over time. I mean, there's
Sure.
been times in my career where it was a very difficult juggling act because it was 50-50. You needed 50% at work, 50% at home. And you always feel like that you're not doing enough at home or you're not doing enough at work. And I think the best thing about it is you kind of accept sometimes they're a little more balanced than others. Sometimes you just have to give more than you think you have to give, and you can do it and you can get through it. And it gets a little easier later, because you're not ever going to feel like it's a perfect balancing act when you're raising a family and
Sure.
building a career. So you're doing the most you can. In my experiences, that turns out to be enough.
Yeah.
It's enough. Your children feel your love, feel the attention. I took care of my mom when my mom needed it before she died. Um, and I think, at that time, that was just a phase of life where I had to spend more time worrying about that, thinking about
Sure.
that. I did it. It worked out fine. And then now's a real balanced time for me because my children are grown.
I always think about, I have a 3-year-old and 2-year-old now, and if they were born during COVID and I
Oh,
had them
wow.
and during COVID, I was like, I would have been the worst dad ever. And I that was like 100 hours a week. You go to bed at 10 or 11, you wake up at 6 a.m., you'd have 30 new emails in, you'd have 4 applications, and you just never felt like you could get ahead. And I think about that now. It's like every time I'm home, I'm taking my kid to golf clinic or something like that. And it's like, I'm so glad that this is an opportunity to like be present today versus what it was not that many
And
years
they have
ago.
no memory. They have
Yeah.
no memory of that. So I always would say to my daughters, I always said, I always feel like I'm trying to compensate for my travel, my career focus, and they're like, Mom, it was great. It was great. And I think, was it? And they're like,
Yeah.
yeah. I said, well, I feel like you guys with your children are so focused on golf and tennis and skating and all this stuff. And they're like, no, Mom, it was great. And I think, okay, well, good. Glad to
Good.
know.
That's all that matters.
I was giving it my best shot. Yeah, it's all
And
that
you know
matters.
what? It worked.
It worked.
So you're down in San Antonio, right? In the SWBC, big Texas, kind of geographic area, Southwest, a lot in the South as well. You've had Brian and Rick's group in Maryland. We obviously joined the last year. What have you noticed about the differences with the DMV, DC, Maryland, Virginia compared to, say, Texas and the rest of your footprint?
I always tell people that this company is built by a series of families joining us, and that's really true. So when I came here, there were just a couple of people. They weren't really mortgage people, so I had to sort of start the mortgage business, start hiring people. And over time, because we were tiny, we were very tight, like a family. And then as the company grew, there were times when we had acquisitions. Either we would buy a company because we weren't a subprime lender and they'd failed, and the good side needed a home, or it was a group that for whatever reason, their company was going away and they wanted to join us. It was like, but they were really tight knit groups. And I would say that's true about the DMV group. You guys are remarkably tight. I mean, it is really impressive how collaborative the group is. I think that is unique a little bit because so many of you got in the business at the same time and we're learning at the same time and we're each other's support. It's unusual to see a group that's so tight. and so supportive of one another and collaborative. And it stands out. I mean, I'd say you guys are super smart mortgage bankers. The OG, as we call them around, they also are super smart mortgage bankers, but they didn't always have the benefit of this really tight knit supportive group. It's kind of a remarkable. It's like if you could say what's the boilerplate ideal way to start working with a group, I would say it's the way that you guys got to be. Because if you look at that group, your college roommate, you all got in at the same time. Most of you started fresh at one time at one company with no experience. And so you really leaned on each other. It's really impressive. And it makes you kind of selfless. I mean, I'm impressed by the fact that you guys are taking a lot of time out of your time to help the underlings coming up within the organization. That's hard to do that, by the way. That's a hard thing to do. It's very unselfish. And the unselfish thing, in my opinion, always makes you successful.
Yeah.
It's hard. It's hard because, frankly, when we're in sales, you have to think about yourself a lot of the time to be a good salesperson. You have to take a lot of rejection. You have to push yourself forward. It's not an easy job. But you guys actually look at the new guys coming into your organization, the new men and women, and it's like you think that's part of your responsibility to help them. It's very impressive.
Yeah, I mean, there's been so many of these like godfathers in the area
Mhm.
of DC, Maryland, Virginia. There's like I think of like Mike Twigg as a perfect example. If you look at like kind of his family tree of Steve Lagana, Dan Anastasi, Tim, like all of these people, Chatler, they've all gone on, kind of started their own companies, they've run companies, and it all starts with training rookies, starting with people fresh out of school. They have no experience, and you're right, it does kind of feel ingrained in all of us that like, well, this is how I learned, so this is how we got to pass it to the next generation. And I always tell it to like Scott in our office, I'm like, if we don't have rookies, who are we going to manage in 10 years? you know
Well, yeah. And plus, one of the things that's true, I listened to this great podcast yesterday, Walker Webcast. If you ever get a chance to watch it, it's fabulous. Willie Walker owns a company, Walker Dunlop, and they're a commercial, a multifamily, I mean. But he has fabulous speakers on. And yesterday, a speaker, and I missed part of it because I had another meeting, was talking about at every generation, there's something you have to contribute. So
Mm.
the idea that really young or really old can't contribute is actually completely not true. It's great perspective. It's great perspective from supposedly the older, wiser. It's great perspective from people new coming into the business to see things you're not seeing. And so when you approach it like you guys approach it, where you're going to give back, you're contributing, but they'll teach you stuff along the way.
Oh,
When
yeah.
I've mentored people in the past, I always tell people when I am working with somebody, there's never a time I don't feel like I get every bit as much, if not more, than what I'm giving them in the mentoring. And that's what you guys are doing. I think it's great.
So, I mean, there was a buddy of mine who runs a brokerage called Arla, and he always explained to me, he's like, you need a diverse ecosystem at all times. You want brand new, you want slightly experienced, very experienced, people on their way out, because it's all these different perspectives, exactly to your point. Sometimes you get a lead and you're busy, you got some of the kids, you can hand it off to the rookie. You have people modeling what it's like when they're going on 10 sales calls a week, right? Because so you want people to see different stages of the life cycle of the career. And I think that's been, great for us and great for many others.
Great
Uh,
advice.
you mentioned mentoring, right? And you serve as a mentor to many now. Who were some of your mentors when you got in the business and
You
along the way?
know, my father um, worked from the time he was 8 till the age of 90.
Wow.
And he was a banker. He had a law degree and he worked in the trust area. And he always gave me real black and white, very practical advice. And I think about it. I still think about some of the things he told me early in my career because they seemed really simple and straightforward, but
Yeah.
they were kind of a touchstone to how you're supposed to be. And then my mom raised 4 kids, had multiple careers, was a teacher, worked with kids that had learning disabilities, and went to law school at 50. And so just watching, then she practiced law for 25 years. And then, so they were big time mentors as far as never stop pushing yourself to do the next thing that's hard that you might not want to do. Don't get comfortable. So I would say they were big mentors. My husband, Van Stewart, when I came over here, he started his own mortgage company. He's a little older than me and been in the business a little longer. And I'm pretty sure I wouldn't have survived without him because I really didn't understand when I took the job that there was a company to build. And I hadn't really built a company like that before. So I would say that those were my early mentors. And of course, I've worked for Gary and Charlie for 37 years. And Gary and Charlie are not mortgage bankers, but they're businessmen and they're entrepreneurs. And they taught me to take more risks than I was comfortable with.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, I'd say it's worked out for sure.
Yeah. Yay.
So, what do you think your special skill or superpower is as a leader or CEO?
My superpower, you know, I, this sounds kind of cheesy, but I think I have a really high EQ. I really like people, so I really empathize with people. So I think that's allowed me to understand or try to understand where people are coming from. It's a stressful industry, it's a stressful business. And I don't care if you're processing, underwriting, closing, definitely originating and managing, it's challenging. And so I think that for me, I'm an empathetic person, basically. And I think I can sort of feel the suffering. It's hard sometimes. It's like during COVID when we were all so stressed out, I felt like I had an IV hooked up to my arm every day, right? Just the
Wow.
stress of it with the people that you're trying to help them with that stress, but you take
Sure.
it on. So I think that empathy, and then really early on in my career, I decided that requiring kindness was really important, that if you
Yeah.
wanted to create a place that people wanted to work, what did that involve? And it's not just money, and it's not just power and success. It's also feeling like you belong, feeling like you're heard, and having somebody empathetic and kind to your situation. I think that was an early lesson for me. I didn't always have that right as an early manager. I was real straightforward, real cut and dry, just boom, this is the deal. What do you want? Get out kind of deal. And I learned by error that no, these are human beings. You need to be empathetic. You need to listen to them. You need to be kind. And you need to kind of put yourself in their position if you're going to actually help them feel good about working here. So I think
Sure.
that's been my superpower.
Uh, I agree. So I will tell you, at the Leaders Club in Charleston, you were speaking in front of, I don't know, 100 plus people, whatever it was. Every person in that room had the same reaction, that they felt like they were the only person in the room. I know that's how I felt, especially the spouses, right? Like my wife, Mackie,
Also,
Borg's wife, Meg, afterwards were just, their jaw was almost on the floor. They were like, I felt like she was just talking to me. Like, you have this gift, and it just, you make people feel like they're the only people in that room. And that is so unique. And, I always say, in an industry full of like machismo and, everyone's puffing their chest about production and how great they are, your humility and your ability just to connect, right? The old two ears, one mouth, just listen. I remember that call we had. I just left being like a warm, like a soft, like relaxing feeling afterwards. Like, wow, it just felt great talking. And that is very unique. It's not, you're never selling, you're never pitching how great we are. It's more about just listening and connecting with people. And the emotional intelligence and the EQ, all that, I can definitely say that that's a superpower.
I think, so when I get up to talk to everybody, I'm always really nervous during the prep period. I'm like famously anxious about it. Everybody knows I get weary talking about it. And it's because years ago, I remember thinking, I just want to say something that helps one person in the room. That's
Sure.
my that's my goal. And I don't know who it is. I'm not necessarily thinking of somebody when I'm thinking about it. I'm just thinking about the year that we've been through and the things that people are dealing with. And I don't know everything that people are dealing with, but I know some of the stuff. And so I do try to use that time. We're going to talk about work all the time.
Yeah.
So let's not talk about work right now, right? Let's just talk about how you feel as a person, what's really important, what's important at our company. And it's not about the bottom line right now, or we're going to talk about success, but right now, let's just not talk about that. Let's just talk about what do people need? What is it that we can give them? What is it they get from each other? That is more important in the grand scheme of things when you're
Sure.
talking to the group, I think. And then we're going to talk about everybody's success the rest of the time, which is great. But
Yeah.
for me, it comes down to, I don't know, what matters to a leader is, are you listening to your people? It's not about you. I mean,
Yeah.
always tell people, it's like, if you want to be a good boss, you're not number one. You're the last. You're the last. It's like with your kids, you're not number one. They
Sure.
are. right?
Yeah.
And this isn't a group of children we're working with, but it's the same sort of thing. Your role is about somebody else. It's not about you. So if you keep that in mind, there's no way you're going to get up there and talk about yourself or anything else because
Sure.
it's not about you, right? It's not. And the longer I've done this job, the more people I've been able to work with, the wonderful people that I've learned from, the more that is cemented in my mind, the things that people do to help one another just so selflessly. So I think the perspective is that I'm trying to keep that in mind. It's not about the success right now. Right now, it's just about who we are.
I mean, we say that to our young guys all the time. It's, when you're talking to a processor, a closer, an underwriter, something like that, you're never going to be barking out orders and telling them what they have to. Why? Like, no one wants to be told by another adult what they have to do. They want to make the decision. They want to feel empowered to be like they're helping you. And, that idea of, the leadership, instead of thinking that everyone works for them, it's they work for everyone else, right? I know Steve Laganas talked about that all the time. It's like you always got to make people feel like you work for them, not that they work for you. And you definitely do a great job at that.
Yeah, you don't want to treat people like they're the help.
Right.
I
Yeah.
used to say as a baby manager, one of the few things I did right as a baby manager is I would say, be nice because you're nice or nice because you're smart. And they
Yeah.
teach me about it now, but it's like, just think about that. Why are you doing it? You want them to help you. Just you don't feeling very nice right now. You're feeling frustrated or whatever. You
Yeah.
don't feel, that your motivation is to get done what you need to get done and take care of your borrower. But on the other end of that is somebody that you want to help you. And so being nice to them about it is just more effective. Even if
Correct.
you're not naturally that way, be effective.
From a self-interested perspective, it's better.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Absolutely right.
So long career, successful career, when you look back, were there any failures, missed opportunities, things that went wrong in the moment that you look back now and you're like, well, I'm glad that worked out because it's led me to this kind of path I'm on now? Anything that stands out?
I mean, a couple of things. One thing is I certainly have had my share of hiring people that turned out to be pretty bad people. It was real difficult to deal with them.
Sure.
It's usually people in a production leadership role, and they could just be really, not a good fit in any way. And that was always really stressful. And I would hate that part of my time with them. But then I learned a lot about what I never want to be like, or also just kind of sticking to your guns when it comes to integrity. That's all that at the end of the day, being honest and having integrity, you can't get that back. So
Yeah.
don't trade with that. Right. So I think that was something that I would think, why'd I hire them? And I think, well, the end result of that hire turned out to be a good thing for many reasons. And then over the years, because I've been here so long and I've done this so long, I've had lots of opportunities to go work somewhere else, lots of opportunities to go be an owner at another company. And I thought about it over the years a couple of times, and I never wanted to leave SWBC, and I felt like I was at the right spot. So I do think at the end, the decision not to do that was a great decision for me.
Sure. Well, selfishly, it worked out for me, you being here. So
Good.
I
Good, I'm
appreciate it.
glad.
What advice would you give to the younger generation, those that are starting their career now? I know we have a bunch of rookies. There's a lot of younger people listening to this call or will be listening. What do you tell them?
Well, the first thing I tell them is to volunteer to do everything that you don't want to do. That if you want to be successful, really successful, raise your hand, take
Sure.
the opportunity. Take the opportunity when you don't even know how to do it. Because I always tell people, I was like, there's always these people that are reluctant. It's like, I don't really know how to do that. It's like, well, you're never going to know if you don't just jump in there. So
Right.
I think, first off, take the opportunity to do anything you're asked to do or you have the opportunity to do. I do think it would have been nice for me to have some mentors in the industry, and I didn't really in my career. If you could
Mhm.
find a mentor, I think it's really helpful. Then usually a mentor is just somebody older that's kind of made the mistakes already, and they can steer
Sure.
you in the right path. And really, besides just flat out working hard, keep in mind that you can never get your reputation back. So just act in a way that you're never ashamed of your whole career, because this is a small world. It's a
Oh,
small
yeah.
business, and people know the people that are honest. We had two guys that worked for us for a period of time. They were head production guys, and they left, and it was a sour note. The whole thing had kind of gone sour, and they talked terrible about
Oh,
us. But here's the good news: nobody bought it, because we've been around, because that people knew who we were, they know who you are. You don't have
Sure.
to worry about that. So I think that's an important thing to learn when you're young. Just keep in mind, you're going to run into people. They're going to work for you. You're going to work for them. And if you always are straight up, and you guys have that reputation, by the way, for being straight up. You also have the reputation for being nice, and other people at other companies are willing to work with you. That's not nothing.
Sure.
That's earned.
Well, it all depends who you ask, but yeah.
But it's a good thing. It's a good thing to learn when you're really young. You just,
Yeah.
they're not enemies. Your competitors aren't your enemies, right?
Sure.
They're ultimately your peers, and it's okay to go on and be nice to them and helpful, and do the things that are right and feel good about what you're doing. And I think when you're young, it's so hard to get ahead and be successful. It's just an important thing to remember.
I've never understood. I've always been a big believer. I want to have friends at every company. I want to
Yeah.
know what's out there. I want the
Yeah.
intel. I want to know what products you have. I want to know what the rates are. I want to know what you like about it, what you don't like about it. Like, I'm a big information is power guy. So like I've always loved the networking with other people, being involved in the association, Mortgage Bankers Association, which you were president during COVID.
I was chairman. The
Chairman, what was
president's
that
the
like?
paid guy, the smart guy.
Sorry, chairman.
No, I was a volunteer gig. I was the chairman. That's okay.
And what was that like during COVID?
It was crazy. I will say that is a job I did not want. I watched other people do it, and I thought, no, thank you. Very demanding. Got plenty on my plate. Completely surprised. Dave Stevens was still at the NBA when they asked me to do that job, and I said, I don't know. I got to think about it. I called everybody I knew I thought would tell me no, and like, you got to do it. And I'm so glad I did, because you learn so much. But along with learning from really smart people in the industry that you're surrounded by, you make some really good friends. But the flip side of that is you actually can make things happen. You actually feel like you're contributing to the industry. And during COVID, when it was like, what do we do about appraisals? What do we do about employment verification? How are we going to close these loans? How are we going to work with Fannie and Freddie? And everybody gets to now say they want to go in forbearance. How are we going to deal with that? We would get on the phone. We would have all these smart people we'd be talking to. We'd be talking to regulators. And at the end of the day, many times you could point to something and say, that got done because we were doing it. And that was super fulfilling. So I would say, you sometimes think, how do I have time for more? So I was in the local MBA first, and then I did the state MBA. And then I kind of got drafted in after being asked to be on RESBOG, the Residential Board of Governors, which is kind of your way for some of us in. I did the work. I think that's how you get ahead. I did the work.
Right.
I showed up at all the meetings, but it was extremely fulfilling, but extremely demanding. For me, I had the COVID year. So I had it in 21. And so all meetings were canceled. So people are like, well, you didn't travel. I said, I didn't travel, but I didn't have a reason I could miss any meeting. So about 60% of my day, I was on a Zoom meeting. But we made really good progress, and I got to meet you get to interview some amazing Andrew Young. He was a fabulous guy, was with Martin Luther King and mayor of Atlanta. He's an amazing guy. I got to talk to some really cool people. It was a great experience. I highly recommend it.
I love it. Well, Susan, any parting words of wisdom to our crowd? Anything you want to say or share? You've shared so much. I don't know if there's anything left in the tank.
I know. I would just say, just expect to give as much as you expect to receive.
Okay. I mean, my takeaway from this is continue to be nice, keep volunteering, and keep working hard.
Keep working hard. That's right. And, surround yourself with the right kind of people. I think that's really, it's important when you're a kid. Well, it's equally important when you're an adult. So if you're around people that aren't like doing things the way that you agree with, then make a change.
You are who you surround yourself with.
That's right.
Right? It's your circle. It explains a lot about who you are.
Yeah.
Well, Susan, this was great. Thank you so much for your time today. I appreciate it.
All right. Take care of yourself. Bye.
Have a good one.
You too. Bye-bye.